Good afternoon. Clyde and I are welcoming you out here to our sunroom here in Centerville. We welcome you here for my devotional thought for this afternoon. It deals with a beautiful topic, what happened resurrection morning. And it deals with faith. What is faith? There can be limits to belief or faith. One of the most famous 19th century theologians was a man by the name of Karl Barth, B-A-R-T-H. And a young man traveled to Bern, Switzerland, where Karl Barth taught, to kind of do a summer study at a college there in the hope that he would be able to meet his hero, Karl Barth. So he was there for June and July, and there was one August day, and he was on the city trolley, driving through the town, beautiful old Bern, the capital of Switzerland. As he was standing there, an older, very dignified man came beside him, and he could tell that the young man was not of that place. He was a type of tourist, and he said, "How do you like Bern?" And the young man said, "Oh, I love it. I love it." And the man said, "Well, what brought you here to Bern?" And he said, "Well, I wanted to meet my hero, Karl Barth. I hear he lives here, and I'm hoping to sometime before I leave in just a few weeks to have a chance to meet Karl Barth." Well, the older, dignified gentleman kind of did a little private chuckle and looked at the young man and said, "How interesting. I just shaved Karl Barth this morning." And the young man said, "Really? Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much." He shook the man's hand. This has made my day. And so that evening, as he wrote to his parents, said, "You won't believe who I met today on the Bern Street trolley car. I met Karl Barth's barber." You see, there are limits to belief. He could not believe the older, dignified man was actually Karl Barth. And it's something that all of us face, the limits of belief and the limits of faith. And we see that on resurrection morning in the Gospel of John. John chapter 20, verses 1 through 8. "Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came early to the tomb while it was still dark, and saw the tomb already taken away from the tomb. So she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciple, whom Jesus loved," which was John, "and said to them, 'They have taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him.' So Peter and the other disciple went forth, and they were going to the tomb. The two were running together. And the other disciple, the younger one, John, ran ahead faster than Peter, and came to the tomb first. And stooping and looking in, he saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. And so Simon Peter also came, following him, and entered the tomb. And he saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the face cloth, which had been on his head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. So the other disciple, John, who had first come to the tomb, then also entered, and he saw and believed." The question is, why? The body is missing. It could have been a robbery. There's no Roman troops there, no centurions around. What made John believe that Jesus had been resurrected just by looking into the tomb? Because Peter, he was amazed too, but then he ran off. John remained there. And so things are going through his mind. If someone had removed Jesus' body, if tomb robbers had been at work, why leave the grave clothes? Why leave the grave clothes? And not just any grave clothes. The grave clothes were not disheveled or disarranged. They were lying still there in their folds. That is what the Greek means. The clothes for the body, where the body had been. The napkin, where the head had lain. In Greek, that's called the sodarkin, the napkin around the head. It was separated from the other grave clothes. It had been folded. The whole point of the description is that the grave clothes did not look as if they had been put off or taken off. They were lying there in their regular folds as if the body of Jesus had simply evaporated from them. The sight suddenly penetrated to John's mind. He realized what had happened at that moment. And it says he believed. It was not what he had read in Scripture which convinced him that Jesus had arisen. It was what he saw with his own eyes. In fact, it says in verse 9, "For as yet they did not understand the Scripture, that he must rise again from the dead." But what made John believe were the folded clothes, the folded napkin, the folded garments. And what did the folded clothes tell John and us about Jesus? It showed Jesus keeps his promises. It was not a grave robbery that had happened. In fact, one of the three predictions Jesus had made in the Gospel of Mark to prepare his disciples on what would happen is in Mark chapter 10, verses 32 to 34. They were on the road going up to Jerusalem. Jesus was walking on ahead of them, and they were amazed. And those who followed were fearful. And again he took the 12 aside and began to tell them what was going to happen to him. This is his third prediction he had made to them in the Gospel of Mark, saying, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and the scribes. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles. They will mock him and spit on him and scourge him and kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise again." Now it clicks with Mark as he sees the folded clothes there in that empty tomb where there's no body. It also showed us that Jesus was patient. He wanted to reveal himself to Mary Magdalene before ascending to the Father. And the folded clothes showed that Jesus was powerful. He would be the first fruits of those to be resurrected, as Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 20 and 25 and 26. "For now Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who are asleep. For he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be abolished is death." The folded clothes in the empty tomb on that resurrected morning showed Jesus' victory over the last and greatest enemy, death. And it goes back to Jesus' great promise that he had made to the disciples there at the Last Supper. "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will return again and take you to myself, that where I am, there you will be also." So what does the folding of the clothes, the folding of the napkin in that empty tomb represent? It basically says to us, 2,000 years later, I will come again and take you to myself, that where I am, there you will be also. The greatest promise of the Scripture, symbolized to the young John by the folded clothes in the empty tomb. God bless you today, and may you have a wonderful and blessed day wherever you are. Bye.